Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News on a weekend where Sergio Perez needed desperately to answer the critics that were saying that he's got to go if he can't hold on to P2 in the Drivers' Championship. He's answered those critics by getting eliminated in Q2 again for the 8th time this season. He's failed to make Q3 in the Red Bull rocket ship. The Max is stuck on pole yet again. Tricky qualifying conditions for every driver. Drama for Sainz, for Perez, for Stroll. We'll get into the Mercedes pair end up second and third for now, with further investigations ongoing after the two McLaren boys got lap times deleted. Lots to talk about here, especially on the Perez side of the garage. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Firstly, big update actually. We know that James Vowles from Williams has been pushing for some time now to try and have a leeway in the cost cap, such that teams that don't have the infrastructure that top teams have can spend more on that than other teams can. And this makes sense. If you're Williams, you don't have the mega facilities and the infrastructure that Mercedes have, that Red Bull have, that Ferrari have. So if you can only spend the same amount every year, you can't, if you put money into the factory, your car's going to be terrible. So the trade-off is now that they will do as follows, that every team gets more to spend on, let's say, CapEx, as they like to call it, capital expenditure, but the further you are down the grid in WCC standings over the last few years, you get more money. So Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes have agreed to this, probably because they still get some more money to put towards this. It's more, 58 million for McLaren, Alpine and Aston Martin, and then 65 million for the other team. So quite a cool update there, a step in the right direction. Common sense may have prevailed on that one. Few upgrades around the grid, although I'm not sure we really saw much action on this. Today, it was the usual suspects. A somewhat fascinating practice session because it really told us nothing at all. The track was really sandy. It was obvious the track was going to ramp up massively when qualifying got underway. And I think the first laps they were putting in here were like 15 seconds of Hamilton's pole position time from 2021. The actual pole time was more like 3-4 seconds off Hamilton's pole times. That's kind of what the delta is in car performance around a circuit like this compared to that W12 that was really good at the end of that season. It was Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, but this didn't feel massively representative just because I think we really expected the McLarens to be really good around here, and it turned out that was the case. Alonso was kind of the standout though. This lap time was on mediums, and the Aston Martin suddenly looked rather competitive yet again. There were some long runs done in practice, but I really don't think this is particularly representative. Like typically you wouldn't expect the times to get quicker over the long run, but because the track was rubbering in and the sand was getting dispersed, they were going quicker. I'm not sure you can really look too much into these numbers, but there were some long runs done, and you can usually look at the pace of the Red Bull and then add about 4 or 5 tenths. So that's usually the race pace advantage they have over the rest of the field. Alonso was again on fire when we got into qualifying, had a great Q1, but well, not the same story for his teammate Lance Stroll, and there's been lots of speculation about Stroll, whether he actually still wants to be here next season, what's going on with Aston Martin, whether Lawrence is going to sell the team to the Saudis. We talked about that yesterday. Stroll maybe wants to go become a tennis professional. I don't know. Does his heart seem in the sport? Should he stay around? No, let's be honest. On his performances, he will because, well, he can if he wants to. The question is, does he want to? And he seems like the least motivated driver on the grid right now, and he's not having a good time. This is 4 Q1 eliminations in a row. He's getting destroyed by his teammate, and we'll see more on that in a second. Mercedes went for some tricky strategy here. They decided to go out on the mediums, and I was like, do Mercedes think they've got a rocket ship here? Because they acted like they had the W11 back again. You know what I mean? Mercedes do this stuff in qualifying that I think puts their drivers at risk, because Hamilton did one fast lap. It was okay, but it wasn't rapid. He then did another one that didn't really improve. And then I think at the end of the session, he didn't really have time to get another set of tyres on. So he had to go for another fast lap on the same set of tyres. Round a circuit like this, the tyre dig is big. You're on 3-lap-old softs, 5-lap-old softs actually with the cooldown laps. There's no way you're going to improve. So Hamilton was lucky really to actually get through. And okay, they worked out with not using the set of tyres they could have had. And he only got through really because Stroll is terrible, to be honest. Well, I think he would have been P15 actually, and because Albon didn't quite beat him. And unfortunately for Sargent, he was so close to beating Albon, but it didn't happen, and Albon locked him out. But these are the recent qualifying positions for Lance Stroll. It ain't looking good. And yes, the car has regressed, but even when the car was good, he didn't get a podium. He got a P4 in Australia, but largely he's been getting destroyed by his teammate Alonso. And even now, Alonso's still looking pretty good. The car isn't great, but it's okay around here this weekend at Aston Martin. Not in the hands of Stroll. I mean, look at this. P20, P20, P17, P17. Complete shambles. And after that, he got out of his car and people thought initially he punched the wall, but I think his trainer got in his way or something. We can actually kind of see it here. So Stroll goes to the back of the garage and then I think his trainer maybe gets in the way. We can just about see it here, and he appears to push this guy out of the way. You can actually kind of see it in the background just about. So yeah, clearly some deep frustrations from Stroll, added on to the fact that then Stroll, and as Tom Bellingham says, Stroll practicing his tennis string because, yeah, he might not be long for this sport. And then he does an interview, and in classic Kimi Räikkönen style, just says nothing at all. It was a quality interview. I know that people are like, oh, you shouldn't interview the drivers when they're frustrated, but it's like, you know, these are some of the moments that make the sport, and it is an obligation the drivers had to do. It's in their contracts, so unlucky, Lance. And yeah, he kind of got cooked, answered about 3 questions in about 3 words, and then walked off, stormed off, not a happy man. And sure, the fact that he is frustrated shows that the passion is there to some degree, but the driving ability isn't there at the moment because it ain't looking good. Now, this is, as of recording, still ongoing. During that Q1, there were 4 cars noted for effectively failing to follow the minimum lap time guidance, right? We know that nowadays, in order to prevent the traffic stuff, they say, all right, you've got to go from safety car line 2 to safety car line 1 or whatever it is. 1:46 is kind of the minimum lap time. Now, if you go slower than that, there's meant to be some sort of repercussion. Generally, this seems to have been a guidance thing. It was brought in at Monza, the Ferraris went slower, but it turned out it was all fine, and it was like, oh, well, it's Monza, they're going to let them get away with it. Apparently, if you are just slowing down to let cars through, it's fine, right? But if you're not doing that, then maybe it's not fine. What's the implications? I don't really know. There was also Russell later on in the session was stopping in the pit lane, as Verstappen did back in Singapore. And after that Grand Prix, the steward said, well, Verstappen for stopping for 18 seconds in a row should have got penalised for that. I don't know if Red Bull will be on the phone to the FIA saying, hey, Russell should get a penalty after the fact that they just managed to avoid one a couple of weeks ago with Verstappen. But still, so that's potentially under investigation. I don't really know if they actually put that under investigation. The stewards seemed rather slow, to be honest, especially when we get to Q3 and we look at some of this lap time stuff. Generally, this failing to follow race directors' instructions, they seem to just be able to get away with this generally. There's various excuses they can come up with. And I think generally it's more of like a guidance thing. It's like, look, please try and stick to this lap time, guys, and we'll have a better time in qualifying, rather than if you exceed it, we're definitely going to penalise you. But who knows, maybe I'm wrong. And Hamilton and the rest of these guys will get demoted further down the order. But here we go into Q2, and Sainz was having a hard time round here. And we know that he's done really well the last few races, but I did feel like that streak might come to an end at some point. And look, it's tricky to keep it in track limits around here. The wind conditions, the ramping up of the track, it's a tricky circuit to get right. It makes it so good to watch in qualifying because the cars are going really quick at the end of this session. Those corners are at times almost flat out, but one small mistake, one small correction, that can be the end of your lap. We saw it with Sainz, we saw it with plenty of drivers exceeding track limits on the day. There was also this that Sainz, to my understanding, is still under investigation for driving erratically. When Verstappen comes up behind Sainz, and Sainz almost like tries to be honest, I don't think Sainz saw him. I don't think Sainz has any idea. I don't know why Ferrari didn't tell him. I don't really know what the radio comms were like. But this was definitely a weird one with Sainz all over, like basically Verstappen was all over his gearbox and he wasn't getting out of the way. And Sainz does this quite a lot, to be honest. There's been multiple times, I remember, was it Canada, specifically earlier this season, where Sainz was getting in everybody's way and hasn't been massively penalised for it this season. So maybe something is going to happen because of this, but the reality is it's not going to massively matter because Sainz was out in P12. The big story, though, was Perez, who was already, like, it's not that his lap time that got deleted was good enough for P2 or P3 or P5. It was good enough for P10, and he was like 9/10 off Verstappen. I mean, man, it's the breakdown from Perez is bad. And then that laptop got deleted and it was only good enough for P13. So what a shambles, right? And Perez out again. And we talked about this over the last few days, that Perez, the pressure was on him now. Yes, he's 33 points ahead of Hamilton, and that should be unlosable. I mean, P2 in the championship in this car should be impossible to not get. But Perez is making it happen, baby. He's trying his best because it's the 8th time this year he's not been in Q3, which is so insane to think about compared to some of the other drivers that have been in Q3 as many times as he has, or at least have out-qualified him as many times as he has in cars like, you know, McLarens that obviously are now good, but also even like the Williams of Albon and Hulkenberg have out-qualified Perez like nearly as many times as he's out-qualified them. Like, it's been a disaster. And as I say, He starts P13 in the race on Sunday. Maybe tomorrow will be better. He'll get some more points in the sprint race because that's an entirely standalone separate occasion now. Today's qualifying is for Sunday and tomorrow they have their own sprint qualifying and then the sprint race. So maybe he can pick up some points there instead and maybe he recovers to a decent result in the race. But if things go as qualifying looks, he's going to lose more points to Hamilton this weekend. On a weekend where everyone was saying, well, Perez, he really needs to get that P2 or like the Red Bull going to keep him, seems unlikely. I mean, they're going to get rid of him at some point. It's a matter of when, and this isn't helping his cause. Again, it's like when Perez needs a good weekend, he, well, so far has simply not delivered. Now, if they were to get rid of him, he's not going to go to AlphaTauri. I don't really think there's a point. They would just fire him outright, I imagine, because I don't know what they'll do with Perez, but it's a tricky one, and this was what things looked like at the end of that Q2. Hamilton kind of out of nowhere really put together a stellar lap and actually went P1 on the new tyres, a 10th over Verstappen. Then you had the two McLarens, then Russell, the two Alpines were looking pretty good as well. Then Leclerc, Sainz in P12, Tsunoda in P11, out-qualifying Perez, which is, yeah, that's bad. Lawson and a lot of the other rookies, in fairness, were out in Q1, but tricky circuit for a rookie for sure, so I don't really blame them too much. But yes, Sainz out was pretty bad, and but it's not like the Ferrari was looking that good. He was only a couple of tenths off Leclerc, and that was not good enough. And then Perez was just, again, nowhere near Max. He was about 8-9 tenths off Max, and then he got that lap time deleted, so he was even further behind. Not a good look. I mean, look, Stroll was 1.1 seconds off Alonso, and Perez wasn't too dissimilar to that compared to Verstappen. So, yeah, not a good look, as always. And honestly, to add insult to injury, as far as I'm concerned, he then talks about the track limits violations and says that, because this is what he got knocked out for effectively. But as I say, it's not like he was P2 and he got his lap time deleted. He was, and we did this in Austria as well. You guys remember when he got like 3 lap times deleted in Austria? It was a shambles, and lots of criticism then. As he says, we talked about this in the drivers' meeting, there's no need for track limit on a difficult track like this one. What do you mean, Sunshine? Like, difficult track? Aren't you meant to be one of the best racing drivers in the world? Surely you can handle a difficult track, you know? It can't be that hard to keep it in the white lines. You can keep it in the white lines if you want to. Everyone can drive slowly around this track and keep it in the white lines. It's a matter of finding the balance that's the tricky part. Did Russell, did Hamilton, did Alonso, did Verstappen struggle with this? No, and sure, the McLaren drivers had it harder, and some of the cars, such as the Ferraris that were more wind sensitive, they also had a harder time as well. But, I mean, still, I don't think this is an excuse when you're driving a Red Bull. I know that he talks about the setup not being so good, but you can't blame the track limits rules that are there for everyone and have been this way for so long for not getting through. Like, you know, you've just got to deal with it at this point. It's happened before, and maybe it's going to happen again. So, yeah, Perez out in Q2, disastrously so. And then after the first flying runs in Q3, this always happens. Q2 is entertaining, and then Verstappen decides, all right, let's see what this car's really got in the tank, and I'll put 5 tenths in everybody's head. He does it every single week. He did the same thing last time out in Japan, and there was maybe more in the tank as well. I think there was possibly more in Hamilton's lap because he was up and then, well, he had that moment. And also the same thing for Verstappen on his final lap when everyone was pushing to the absolute limit. But after the first few laps, it was Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, Piastri, Leclerc. No Norris because his first lap was deleted for a track limits violation. And then it happened again. Norris knew it as well. I don't know why the stewards were so slow, to be honest, because he knew that he was out. Everyone watching knew that he was over the limits. Everyone knew his lap time was deleted, but yet he pulled up into the P2 box, and then as he was waiting for his interview, he then was told, yeah, unlucky Sunshine, you're out of there, right? So your lap time's been deleted, and there's more on that on the McLaren side in a second. So frustrating for Norris, and then, yeah, so eventually they decided to delete it. Max, in the meantime, got pole. This was the screenshot here of Norris, just marginally over the white line, but he knew it. The team knew it, the stewards eventually knew it, and Norris's lap time was deleted down to P10. Norris was relegated to. Max made a mistake on his final lap, so we had to abort that one, as did Hamilton as well. So that left Russell to improve marginally up to second place, and Piastri was then third. However, this lap, he was way over the track limits on this lap. I don't know if he came up here thinking that he was okay, because he must have known that he was outside track limits on that lap. So, and during his interview, he gets the lap time deleted. Felt bad, really, because Naomi Schiff probably didn't need to tell him him that he got his lap time deleted. But yet he stands there and she says, actually, yeah, your lap time's gone, mate, you're P6. So fantastic. Like, I'm only standing here because you got rid of Norris a couple of seconds ago and now you're kicking me out as well. So that leaves the leaders of the Keep It Within Track Limits Championship as Verstappen, Russell and Hamilton. They will be 1, 2, 3 for the grid tomorrow, assuming there's no more drama on this, because as I say, that Russell pit lane incident I don't believe was even investigated. The Sainz thing is going on. Hamilton was involved in all those drivers with Piastri, in fairness, with not exceeding or not reaching the lap time limits. But for now, this is what we believe is the case for Sunday. So on actual pace, the McLarens have more pace than the Mercedes here. And in terms of theoretical pace, you'd think it should be Verstappen, Perez, Norris, Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, whatever you want to say. The Ferraris don't look that good. And Alonso is doing a good job. As in fairness, the Alpines with their upgrades looked better than I gave them credit for earlier on in the video, to be honest. Wanted to give a shout out to Bottas as well, because that Alfa Romeo, Zhou was out P20. Bottas got all the way through to Q3. We know he's a good qualifier and did a great job here. Yes, he benefited from Perez's lap time deletion, but still, Bottas to get through to Q3 and technically out-qualify Norris is definitely good going in that Alfa tractor. So, yeah, it actually turns out that for Sunday, as I say, why I was mentioning the qualifying theoretical order is because there's another quali session tomorrow where they will go again. But that only sets the order for the sprints. Verstappen during that is probably going to be crowned the world champion, but there's less points up for grabs than there are on Sunday's race, where things really matter generally in terms of championship positioning. And you do have to wonder whether, yes, Verstappen's going to have a mega race pace advantage, but let's say he gets a bad start. Do we remember what happens back in Australia when Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton was P1, P2, P3. Russell and Hamilton both got Verstappen on the first lap, and they were able to keep him at bay as a duo for some time. So if there's a world in which Verstappen gets a bad start and it's the two Mercedes out front, there maybe is a chance they could keep him behind during the Grand Prix. The reality is that's probably not going to happen, but having both Mercedes up there to fight is going to be interesting, and then watching the McLarens try and fight through the field, because they seem very strong around here. They should be. It's similar to a Red Bull. The Red Bull's mighty around here. And yeah, definitely a faster car than their qualifying position suggests. But Perez probably, again, the big story of the day on the negative side. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.